Picture the most driven person in your office, the one who volunteers for every high-visibility project, accepts every stretch assignment, and checks email from the parking lot before walking through the door each morning. They have climbed steadily and visibly. The title is impressive. The salary increase that came with it was announced at a team dinner with applause. Now ask yourself honestly, does that person actually seem free? James knows that person well, because for 6 years he was that person. Director of Operations at 39, earning $140,000, with a calendar so dense he had started color-coding it just to understand what was being asked of him on any given Tuesday. He got home most evenings around 8, his kids were in bed, he ate whatever required the least effort, checked his phone once more before sleeping, and woke up the next morning to do it again. The promotion had arrived, the salary had arrived, the title had arrived, and somewhere between all of that arriving, the thing he had actually been working toward, the sense that he was building something, had quietly disappeared. He was maintaining a life, not constructing one. And the life he was maintaining had been engineered without his full awareness to require exactly the income he was currently earning to keep it standing. This video is about the decision James made the following year, what happened when he made it, and why the math of that decision looked completely different from every direction except the one most people never think to look from. What a promotion actually puts in your pocket. Before anything else, the honest arithmetic that most people skip. James's promotion had taken him from $90,000 to $140,000 annually, $50,000 more per year. That is a number that feels significant, significant enough to justify the lifestyle adjustments that followed almost automatically. The nicer apartment, the newer car, the private school that was, after all, within reach now. But $50,000 in gross income is not $50,000 in real purchasing power. Federal income and payroll taxes on the incremental income claimed roughly $18,000 of it before James saw a cent. State taxes took another several thousand. Of the original $50,000 raise, somewhere around $28,000 to $30,000 reached his account in after-tax form. Then lifestyle inflation arrived, as it almost always does, absorbing most of what remained. Research consistently finds that the average person spends between 65 and 85 cents of every new dollar they earn. The brain registers higher income as permission to expand in every direction simultaneously: the apartment, the car, the restaurants that used to be occasional becoming routine. By the time the spending settled into its new baseline, James had roughly $6,000 to $8,000 annually in genuinely new investable capacity. $6,000 to $8,000 in exchange for $50,000 in gross salary, and in exchange for something the pay stub never showed: additional hours the new title required but did not compensate. The math no job description mentions. Here is the calculation that James eventually ran, and that almost nobody runs before accepting a management promotion. At his previous individual contributor role, James worked approximately 42 hours per week. As director, the real number, not the official expectation, the actual number tracked across a month, was closer to 58, 16 additional hours per week. Across a working year, that is roughly 800 extra hours, hours that existed under the Fair Labor Standards Act's salaried exempt classification, meaning they carried no overtime entitlement, no additional compensation, no recognition beyond the vague understanding that this was simply part of the role. Divide his annual salary by actual hours worked, and the effective hourly rate of the director role was barely higher than the rate of the job he had held before the promotion. The gap, calculated honestly, was approximately $2 to $3 per hour, while the stress differential, the decision load differential, and the cognitive exhaustion differential were considerably larger than that. 800 hours per year, uncompensated, given freely in exchange for a title that looked impressive on a business card and a salary that felt substantial until the lifestyle it generated required every dollar of it to sustain. What those hours could build instead. This is the part of the equation that the promotion conversation never includes, and the part that James found most clarifying once he sat down with the actual numbers. 800 uncompensated hours annually is 16 hours per week. Directed toward building something of his own, a consulting practice, a freelance operation, a content platform in his professional area, that time represents a genuine second income with compounding potential. Conservative estimates for professional freelancers or consultants in established fields put monthly earnings from a part-time practice at $1,500 to $2,500 once initial traction develops. Applied to a diversified index fund at historical average market returns, $2,000 per month over 20 years produces a sum that exceeds $1.5 million. That is the opportunity cost of the 16 weekly hours, not a theoretical maximum, a conservative projection from modest effort applied consistently. The person who declines the management promotion, holds to a 40-hour week, and directs the reclaimed time toward building a parallel income stream is not earning less than their promoted colleague. Over a 20-year horizon, they are building more, substantially more, in accumulated wealth. The promoted colleague's additional salary largely funds the lifestyle the title creates. The individual contributor's reclaimed time largely funds the future the title would have consumed. Meet James and Derek, a real comparison. Let James step aside for a moment and introduce his former colleague, Derek, who accepted every promotion James declined after his decision. Derek is 41, earning $155,000 as a vice president. On paper, the outcome looks unambiguous. He won the climb. But Derek's mortgage requires his current salary to remain stable. His 2 car payments combined run close to $1,700 monthly. The lifestyle assembled around his title, the school district, the neighborhood, the social context, has quietly become a set of financial walls. Not because Derek made irresponsible decisions, but because each decision was individually reasonable and collectively binding. Derek's retirement account holds $94,000 at 41. He needs roughly $1.8 million to retire with the same lifestyle at 65. He has told himself the home equity covers the gap, which is a comforting story that does not survive direct mathematical scrutiny. James, after declining 2 promotion opportunities and redirecting the reclaimed time, is 41 with $108,000 in salary, a consulting practice generating $2,200 monthly, and an investment portfolio of $230,000. His mortgage is smaller. His monthly obligations are lighter. His effective hourly rate, calculated honestly, is higher than Derek's. His financial runway, measured in how long he could sustain his life without employment income, is roughly 9 months longer. Derek earns significantly more on paper. James is building more in reality. The difference compounds every year. The system was not designed for your benefit. This is the piece that James found most clarifying, and the piece that most career advice systematically avoids naming. The corporate promotion system was not engineered to maximize the wealth of the people climbing it. It was engineered to maximize the productivity of the organization offering it. The title, the salary increment, the visible recognition, these function as mechanisms for extracting maximum effort from the full population of aspirants, including the large majority who will never reach the senior levels they are competing toward. Labor economists have a term for this architecture: tournament theory. The organization structures advancement as an elimination competition in which the prize captures effort from every participant, not just the eventual winners. Most of the players fund the prize pool with their evenings and weekends and never collect. A meaningful percentage of recent promotions, research puts the number near 40% in recent years, involve upgraded titles without corresponding pay increases. Companies have discovered that a meaningful share of employees will accept status recognition in lieu of compensation, and they act on that discovery consistently. Meanwhile, since the late 1970s, worker productivity has grown more than 3 times faster than worker compensation. The value being created by the workforce has not been flowing back proportionally to the workforce creating it. The promotion system is part of the mechanism by which that gap is maintained, and the people inside it are persuaded to find it motivating rather than extractive. None of this is conspiratorial. It is simply the natural operation of an incentive structure that serves its designers. Understanding it clearly is not cynicism. It is the prerequisite for making financial decisions that serve your interests rather than theirs. The identity trap inside the climb. There is a dimension to the promotion dynamic that operates beyond salary and hours, and it may be the most expensive one. When a person spends years tightly coupling their identity to a professional title, they gradually stop being a person who holds a job and become a job that happens to have a person attached. The distinction seems abstract until the morning a restructuring announcement arrives in their inbox. At that point, the distinction becomes very concrete. Research on job loss consistently finds that for people who built their primary identity around professional status, the psychological impact resembles the loss of a close relationship more than the loss of a paycheck. The financial scarring of involuntary job loss persists in measurable ways for a decade or more. The identity scarring often runs deeper and longer. Middle management positions have represented a disproportionate and growing share of corporate layoffs in recent years. The employees being eliminated were not typically underperformers. They were the climbers, people who had optimized for advancement, built lives requiring their peak salary to sustain, and in many cases, moved far enough from hands-on technical work that their market versatility had quietly diminished without their noticing. When James declined his promotion, his manager expressed concern about his trajectory. 3 years later, when his company underwent a significant restructuring, James was retained without discussion. His individual contributor skills were current, his salary was below the elimination threshold, and his lifestyle did not depend on any outcome that the company controlled. The colleagues who had climbed past him faced considerably more complicated Tuesdays. What the research actually says about money and well-being. The assumption underneath the entire promotion chase is that more income produces more happiness in roughly linear proportion. The actual research tells a more nuanced and in some ways more useful story. Comprehensive studies on income and well-being consistently find that the relationship between money and happiness is real, but decelerating sharply past a certain threshold. Below roughly $100,000 annually, additional income produces meaningful well-being improvements. Above that level, the incremental gains diminish considerably. The lifestyle $140,000 requires versus the lifestyle $100,000 enables is not 40% more comfortable. It is marginally different in ways the research suggests most people adapt to within months. Meanwhile, a separate body of research on financial security and well-being finds that having a modest emergency fund, the buffer between a person and a financial crisis, is among the strongest predictors of feeling financially stable, not the size of the salary, the presence of a cushion, the sense that a bad week does not become a financial catastrophe. This feeling is far more accessible to the person with the leaner lifestyle and the funded savings account than to the person with the impressive salary and the lifestyle built precisely to the edge of it. James, post-decision, checks his account balance with a different feeling than he did at the height of his management ambitions. The number is not larger, the relationship to it is different, the contingency is lower, the options are cleaner. The first time James declined a promotion, it felt like falling behind. His manager looked surprised. Some colleagues quietly concluded he had lost his ambition. He spent about 6 weeks in low-grade internal discomfort, his brain running the social comparison algorithms it had been running since early career. Then something began to shift. The evenings he was not spending in management mode started producing things. The retirement contributions he was actually making started compounding. The consulting work that emerged from the reclaimed hours started generating real income. Sunday evenings stopped carrying the chest tightness that had become so familiar he had stopped registering it as unusual. 5 years after that decision, James looked at Derek and saw the comparison clearly. Derek's salary was larger on paper. Derek's life was considerably smaller in practice. The title that had seemed like the destination had turned out to be the mechanism by which the company purchased a large discount on a large number of years. The person who stops climbing the ladder does not fall behind. They step off a treadmill and begin building something that compounds, something no reorganization can restructure, no skip level can reassign, no spreadsheet can eliminate. That is what changes when you start saying no. Not the title, not the salary, the direction the math is running.